Welcome to the Legal Code, the YouTube channel dedicated to answering and discussing various legal topics, whether that's for your small business, legal concerns that affect our everyday life, as well as celebrity shenanigans with a legal twist. And we have had quite the week with celebrity shenanigans, and we will get into it in this video. But before we do, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and of course share with anyone else you think will also find value in these sorts of topics. Also, I would like to introduce that I have some legal coaching slots available, so if you would like the opportunity to work with me one-on-one to troubleshoot areas in your business, to do a deep dive, to figure out any legal pitfalls that you may experience in the future, you will walk away feeling confident and assured and knowledgeable as to what your next steps are, so that you can avoid being sued and no one else can sue you, because of course no one wants to sue. I mean, my advice is don't sue anyone and don't get sued, because everyone sleeps better at night with that in mind. So again, there is a link in the description box. Also, very excitingly, we have some Legal Code merch, so if you would like to purchase some Legal Code merch, there is also a link in the description box. Now, without further ado, let's get into the infamous slap scene around the world. So by now, we have all seen this infamous slap by Will Smith. So here are my thoughts. Will Smith won an Oscar that night, and he deserved it. Chris Rock got slapped, on the other hand, in front of millions of people. And Will Smith was the loser, and Chris Rock was the biggest winner that evening in terms of manhood, composure, comportment, professionalism. I mean, he is truly a titan of industry, and he exemplified that in that moment. He stood out as a man with dignity and grace. It's easy to judge celebrities when they show us their best, their outside persona, because that's who we see. They get paid to perform for us. We see them adorned, dressed in the finest clothing, makeup immaculate, living in a castle ostensibly, especially in America, where celebrities are revered as royalty because we don't technically have a royal family. However, we see their true essence in moments like this. Chris Rock showed us who he is when no one is looking. A class act, grace under fire. And conversely, we saw Will Smith, not a bad guy, but struggling with his masculinity, struggling with his confidence, and struggling with his demons. And he misdirected his rage at Chris Rock. Secondly, I would like to look at this assault as a workplace assault. Let's negate the fact that this was the Oscars and these were celebrities. This was an assault that happened at work. Chris Rock was an employee of the Oscars and was assaulted at work. With that in mind, the people who contend that Will Smith was protecting his wife, would you feel the same way? I'm almost guaranteed you would not. You would have a different feeling if this happened at any ordinary workplace in America. The person who assaulted the other person would be escorted out, expected to be escorted out by security, and would be responsible for the backlash. In this case, Rock was asked if he wanted police to come, and of course he refused because he was just confounded, overwhelmed, in shock. So he didn't have the faculties, the mental agility to make a determination in that moment. And rumor has it that Smith refused to leave. So can you imagine someone slapping you or anyone else at work, not being escorted out or fired, then receiving a standing ovation later by staff members, and also receiving ostensibly a promotion because they won the Oscar that night? That is so unheard of in any workplace but Hollywood. Hollywood dictates what we think, what we believe, what we see, what we internalize, what we eat. They put on this spectacle and warped our sense of appropriateness in that moment, because ordinarily the perpetrator would be expected to be escorted out and admonished and face severe consequences, whether civilly or criminally. But a standing ovation was totally inappropriate in my opinion. I mean, of course, Will Smith got up there and he apologized because it set in what he had done, how he had, in that moment, devastated his career. Can he bounce back? I think so, because Will Smith's not a bad guy. So many people admire him and respect him and love him and have love for him. But that was a terrible miscalculation, and I have empathy for him in that moment, not knowing how to deal with his manhood. But I have extreme empathy for Chris Rock for being humiliated in front of millions and millions of people in that moment, but was still able to contain himself and remain composed. Hollywood is just bizarre, because in what world does a man assault another man at work and then receive a standing ovation only moments later? And this speaks to the mammoth-like influence of Will Smith. That shows that he is essentially untouchable and able to dazzle the audience to side with him despite such a notoriously inappropriate and offensive behavior. No one in the history has slapped or assaulted anyone at work and then moments later received a standing ovation from staff members. And this points to the bizarreness of Hollywood, that they really want us to believe what they want us to believe. They can contrive such a offensive act and make us tolerate it. And of course, Chris declined removing Smith because he was in shock. He was confounded. It was such a bizarre situation. And they're colleagues. And he doesn't want to see Smith dragged through the mud, humiliated by being arrested by police. Of course not. And this further exemplified his grace and loyalty in such a bizarre moment. The Academy has some disciplinary action to partake in. It is said that recently, as of last night, Will Smith handed in his Oscar a card, but will he be disciplined any further? We will wait and see. But again, in the context of a workplace incident, this is extremely inappropriate. If my husband came home and said he slapped someone at work, I would be appalled. And that also speaks to Jada Pinkett's reaction with all of this, because she's witnessing this happen and she's not in shock. She's not appalled by this. And that was also further bizarre. If my husband slapped someone at work and I'm witnessing it, I would be like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. Furthermore, I would be concerned that he'd be fired and then we will end up homeless because he's lost his job because of his maladaptive behavior. I'm not thinking that, oh, that's masculinity, he's protecting me. No, protecting me is maintaining your dignity and composure as it relates to your profession, your job, your livelihood. You don't lose your cool as it affects your livelihood. You find a way to manage it so you can continue to pay the bills. That is manhood to me, not this bombastic act of faux chivalry, because it's not chivalrous. No, it's reckless. Chris Rock could have fallen and hit his head and it could have been a manslaughter case. It could have gone so much worse than it actually went. And then my husband is responsible for that? That's what people are not seeing, that this could have escalated. It could have been so much worse. He could have fallen and had a brain injury. I mean, and then what? He's defending his wife? No, I don't think that's inappropriate, nor do I think that measures as to what was going on in that moment. Lastly, I want to speak to the cultural and social impact of this. What we saw replayed over the last few days is indicative of the rampant profanity that comprises America, I'm sorry to say. Sponsored by no other than Hollywood and the Hollywood elites who co-sign on this every single day. Furthermore, what's interesting is that we're being censored by what we can say and what individuals can say, but not what can we see. We have a broadcast of an assault and no one budges. and the night continues as if nothing happened. But what jokes are said are being tempered, which also speaks to the power of words. Words always win, not might. The agility of language, of the mind, is paramount. It's not as sexy and bombastic, like I said, as a fight, but it can cause a revolution, which is why I believe more and more words are being censored. Also, what we saw in the Oscars is a reflection of the brokenness of our current culture. The Oscars could not keep the brokenness at bay. It seeped in the form of a slap through the velvet ropes. This bizarre pageant, because it is a pageant, the most elite night of Hollywood, an environment of extreme excess, cannot keep the rampant dysfunction, sickness, violence at bay. This pageant is a spectacle that is regaled with a certain kind of value, wealth, opulence, and excess and exclusivity. But despite all of that, they could not sustain the pretense. They could not sustain keeping out what's going on in the real world. The Palestinian conflict, Ukrainian conflict, there are around 40 global conflicts going on. The corruption of governments, the corruption of this government, the experience over the last 2 years of the pandemic, inflation, the angst that we're all experiencing and feeling every single day. And the Oscars is asking us to ignore all of that and just pay attention to the 1% of society who's doing extremely well despite what's going on internationally. They couldn't keep it at bay. Not with all of the regale and the $10,000 gowns and the sequins. What seeped in was the unconscious of Americans coming to the surface, no matter how elite they are. It seeped in through the vessel of an Hollywood star. Which points to my last point. Why are we even having the Oscars at this point? The culture has spoken. In real estate, we have a term when a house is on the market for too long and there are no buyers, we say the market has spoken, time to lower the price. In this case, the culture has spoken. We don't perhaps need the Oscars the way we once needed it before. The system is failing. It does not serve, it doesn't have the functionality that it once served Americans, other than parading around opulence. And as this gala is falling apart, we have to question, what is its point? Do we even care about it if it went away? How is it serving us? Its seductiveness, its luster. It's lost its luster. Which is why we saw the most celebrated man, one of the most celebrated men in Hollywood, who won that night, gave everyone, including the Oscar, a proverbial middle finger. The reality that Hollywood's trying to give us is falling apart, so that we probably can focus on our lives and stop looking to them as beacons and start improving our health, start improving our relationships with our family, and being better people, because they are not the standard as we saw. And with that, I leave you. I think it's a very interesting moment in history. It says less about what's going on with celebrities and more about what's going on in our culture. And there's some sort of cultural and social awakening going on. I don't know. And so that is it. That is my 2 cents regarding this. This is a very important, I think, social and cultural moment, because again, Hollywood dictates what we see, what they want us to see. And so I think it was important for me to come on here and give my 2 cents as to what this means socially and culturally. I don't have the answers, but that's just my 2 cents. Secondly, I think we're moving further and further away from God's light every single day. I don't know if this is the rapture. I have no idea. But it certainly feels like the ends of days. And with that, I bid you farewell. Have a good day, and I'll see you next time. And don't forget to like and subscribe and share. Bye-bye.